Dear friends, today we are going to share with you such a true and heart-shaking incident that when you hear it, the ground will slip from under your feet and you will be forced to think, can such a thing really happen? A widowed mother's 3 young daughters, who were not yet married, suddenly became pregnant. They did not go out, nor did they mingle with anyone. So the question arises, who is the one who did all this? Was it their own real father, or some stepbrother, or perhaps an uncle, maternal uncle, brother-in-law, or some other close relative whom they trusted, who was a member of the household and from whom such a thing was never expected? This incident is one that shook the entire village. Even the walls and doors of the houses trembled when the truth came out. So come, without wasting time, listen to that chilling incident which proved that not every beast is outside. Sometimes he is inside the home, and his face is the one most trusted. This is about a hard-working, poor widow with a sorrowful heart whose name was Bibi Halima. Bibi Halima's first husband had already departed from this world, and from her first husband she had a son who stayed with her even after she married again. Later, Halima married a second time, from whom she had 6 daughters, very beautiful, modest, and observing veils. The husband did not live long either, and Halima became a widow again, but she left no deficiency in the upbringing of her daughters. Bibi Halima lived with her 6 daughters in a small mud house. She labored hard, scoured pots in people's homes, washed their clothes, and the little food and money earned from a day's labor were the only support for all of them. Her stepson's name was Kamran, who was older and had lived at home from the beginning. Kamran was the same son from her first husband, but all the daughters considered him their brother. Everything was proceeding quietly when suddenly such a storm arose that the ground slipped from under Halima's feet. One day, Halima's eldest daughter began to feel strange weakness, vomiting, dizziness. The poor mother did not understand at first, and when the condition worsened, she took her to a city clinic. After examining for a while, the doctor said a quiet sentence, "Your daughter is expecting." Hearing this, it was as if Halima's world stopped. She was shaken. The daughter was still unmarried, and an honorable, veiled girl. Then how did this happen? Who did it? When? Why? At first the mother, in shock, scolded the daughter, beat her, taunted her. Then when the daughter kept crying and saying, "Mother, I have never even seen anyone believe me," the mother's heart burst. She understood that the daughter was telling the truth, but this sorrow had not yet lessened when a few days later her second and then her third daughter also turned out to be in the same condition, and the same sentence was on everyone's lips. "Mother, we don't know anything. By God, we remember nothing." This tragedy broke Bibi Halima from within. She cried for days, kept thinking, but understood nothing. Then one day, mustering courage in her heart, she went to the court of the king of Sultanabad, Emperor Yazdan, with the hope of justice. Court was in session. King Yazdan sat upon his throne listening to people's petitions. Suddenly, Bibi Halima entered the court, face soaked with tears, clothes covered in dust, feet bare, and in her eyes only one question: when will I get justice? The king looked at her and asked, "Mother, why are you crying? What sorrow do you have?" Bibi Halima looked around and then fell silent. The minister stepped forward and said, "Mother, you have come to the court. Open your tongue and tell what the trouble is." But Bibi Halima said, "Your Majesty, I want to speak to you in private. The matter of my sorrow is such that if I say it in front of everyone, tomorrow even the walls of my house will tremble with shame." The king was surprised, but seeing the woman's trembling voice and the pain on her face, he said, "Bring this mother to my chamber. I want to hear her sorrow." 2 soldiers took Halima inside to the king's private room. There, Bibi Halima fell at the king's feet and began to weep bitterly. The king's heart softened and he said, "Mother, your plea is my plea. Tell me truthfully what has happened. If some beast is hiding in my kingdom, I will drag him out and make him a lesson for others." Bibi Halima began to speak in a trembling voice. Bibi Halima sighed and began to speak before King Yazdan. "Your Majesty, I am a widowed woman. My first husband passed away years ago. From him I had a son who still lives with me. Later I married again, and from that husband I had 6 daughters. But time proved so cruel that husband did not live long either, and I became a widow once more. The burden of raising my 6 children fell upon my shoulders. Your Majesty, I sweep and mop in the homes of the rich all day long, scrub their pots, and with the leftover food or a few coins that I get, I feed my children. My daughters are very decent, veiled and modest. They have never gone out alone. Their heads are always covered with a scarf, and their eyes remain lowered. My life was passing somehow, when one day my eldest daughter's health began to deteriorate. She remained weak, had dizziness, started vomiting. I took her to the city's doctor. After seeing her, the doctor said, "Your daughter is expecting." Saying this, Bibi Halima's voice began to tremble. Tears started flowing from her eyes. "Your Majesty, the ground slipped from beneath my feet. My daughter isn't even married yet. How can I accept this? I brought her home. I grew angry. I beat her, slapped her. I asked, 'With whom did this happen? Whose child is this?' But my daughter kept crying and falling at my feet said, 'Mother, I do not know. By God, I have never even seen anyone, nor even spoken. I have never even gone out alone. I do not know how all this happened. Your Majesty, she is my daughter. I gave birth to her, raised her, taught her. I can recognize a lie in her eyes, and I understood she was telling the truth. We kept silent. She gave birth to the child. The child was born, and we also held it to our chests. But a few months later, my second daughter's condition began to worsen. I took her to the same doctor, and again the same news came. Your daughter is expecting. My heart crumbled. My hands and feet grew cold. Who is doing all this? How? When? No one comes to our house. My daughters never go out. No one even knocks on our door. And Your Majesty, as if this were not enough, a few days later my third daughter became ill, and she too turned out to be expecting. I exercised patience. Quietly I pleaded with Allah, "Oh Allah, tell me who is doing all this." But no signs surfaced to reveal the truth. Now my patience has overflowed. I want to know who that beast is, who steals the innocence of my daughters and disappears silently. I want justice, Your Majesty. I want justice. Saying this, Bibi Halima fell at the king's feet. Silence fell over the court. King Yazdan's face hardened. He decided that now this was no longer only a mother's problem. It had become a question for the entire kingdom. Hearing Bibi Halima's words, silence prevailed in the court. King Yazdan rose from his place and, drawing a deep breath, said, "Mother, you have come to speak now, when the lives of 3 daughters have been ruined. You should have come when the first daughter was found expecting. If you had told me then, perhaps the other 2 girls would not have seen this day. But it is also true that the poor, like you, keep the truth suppressed out of fear of infamy. To save their daughter's honor, they drink poison themselves, and when this poison starts to gnaw at them from within, then they are forced to scream. Mother, you are also among those who come late, yet they do come." Bibi Halima lowered her eyes in shame. With tears flowing, she said, "Your Majesty, you are right. I should have come earlier, but what has happened has happened. Now I only want the criminal of my daughters to be caught. Who is that beast who silently ruins our lives and slips away?" The king looked at her. Zeal began to boil in his heart. He said, "Mother, now this issue is not yours, but of my kingdom, and as long as I live, no beast is permitted to oppress poor, helpless, and pure women and escape punishment. My belief is that if even one mother in my kingdom is helpless, then cursed is my kingship. Now go and rest. Your sorrow is my pain." Bibi Halima quietly adjusted her shawl and with tears in her eyes departed. King Yazdan returned to the court, apparently listening to petitions, but his heart and mind were entangled in only one matter. Who is it who appears an angel in the light of day and becomes a beast in the darkness of night to rob a mother's 3 daughters of their honor? After court, the king went to his chamber and immediately summoned the prime minister. When the minister came in and saw deep shadows of concern on the king's face, he asked, "Your Majesty, what is the matter that has caused such pain?" The king replied sharply, "Minister, in my kingdom a beast is hiding who has committed such a great sin that even the earth would be ashamed. He has destroyed that woman's 3 daughters, and that mother wept in my court today. Is this justice?" The minister, in a sorrowful tone, said, "This is indeed a great crime, Your Majesty. Now tell me what we must do." The king replied angrily, "I must find out who that person is. When he comes, how he enters inside. He is eating away at that house like a termite, and we must expose him." The minister pondered a little, then slowly stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, even walls have ears. I have a stratagem, but I do not want to reveal it in front of everyone." The king bowed his head and said, "Come close and tell me quickly." The minister stepped forward and whispered a plan into the king's ear, a method that would not only quietly lay a trap, but would catch the beast red-handed while committing his act. The king immediately ordered, "Go and act at once." That very night, the minister quietly went to Bibi Halima's house with a dog. He knocked at the door. When Bibi Halima opened it, she said in surprise, "Minister, you at this hour?" The minister replied gravely, "Mother, after the sorrow you have narrated to the king, he has not been able to sleep all night. We will now find that beast. You will just have to help a little." Seeing the dog tied in the minister's hand, Bibi Halima said in astonishment, "Minister, why have you brought this dog? What will you do with it?" The minister replied in a gentle yet serious tone, "Mother, just take me inside the house. I will explain everything." Bibi Halima opened the door. The minister entered the house and said softly, "Tonight we will expose that beast with the help of this very dog. You all must remain silent. No one should make a sound, as if you do not even know anything is happening. If our trick succeeds, we will catch that tyrant red-handed." Saying this, the minister tied the dog outside in the courtyard at that place from where someone could jump down from the roof. Then he explained everything. "Tonight, no one will scream. You must only watch and endure. We have kept this dog so that as soon as the beast enters the house, the dog will begin to bark at him, and our soldiers will immediately spring into action." The minister ordered 2 guards to keep a hidden watch around the house. After comforting Bibi Halima and her 3 victimized daughters, he returned and went straight to the palace to present himself before the king. The king immediately asked, "Minister, has the trap been set? Is the dog tied at the right place?" The minister bowed his head and said, "Yes, Your Majesty, I have done exactly as you wished. Now, if that beast comes even today, he will not be able to escape." The king took a deep breath and said, "Minister, I cannot sleep until I deliver this tyrant his punishment. I cannot bear that oppressed women weep under my rule." Night began to wane. Silence spread throughout the village. In the moonlight, quiet and fear were scattered, and then, near midnight, a shadow appeared on the roof of Bibi Halima's house. A man arrived stealthily, jumped down from the roof, and landed in the courtyard. But the next moment the dog began to bark loudly at it. The sound was so loud that not only did Bibi Halima and her daughters wake up, but the nearby hidden soldiers also became alert at once. Bibi Halima clutched her heart and drew her daughters close. "He has come, that very beast." Her heartbeat quickened. The soldiers rushed inside. The masked man who had entered began to scream. He started to run, but the soldiers seized him. His hands were twisted, and he was laid on the ground. A black cloth was tied over his face. He wanted to hide his identity, but when the soldiers pulled off his mask, Bibi Halima and her daughters screamed. Their eyes were left wide open, their breaths stopped. It was the very one they had always trusted, the stepbrother who had grown up with them in the house, and whom they had considered a brother to this day. Morning came, and the king's court was in session. The criminal, shackled in handcuffs, knelt with head bowed before the king. People's eyes were astonished, and Bibi Halima stood motionless in her place. Now it was time to lift the curtain and reveal the truth. At that moment, that man was kneeling in the king's court, face covered with a black mask, hands in chains, body trembling. Bibi Halima brought her 6 daughters with her to the court. King Yazdan cleared the court. Now only that criminal, the king, the minister, Bibi Halima, and her daughters were present. King Yazdan said in a stern tone, "Do you have no fear of me? You know that in my kingdom the punishment for laying a hand on a woman's honor is only death." Then he ordered the soldiers, "Remove the mask from this man's face. I want to see the face that has ruined a mother's 3 daughters' lives." When the mask was removed, a deep silence spread. A storm of astonishment, pain, and anger surged in Bibi Halima's eyes. She screamed, "Kamran, you did this!" It was that same stepson who was from Bibi Halima's first husband, who had grown up with her, whom she had never treated differently as a stepson, and whom all the girls called brother. Bibi Halima stepped forward and spat in his face. "Beast! Shameless! Did you feel no shame? These girls grew up with you. You were the one to lay a hand on their heads. You were their brother. You were their protector, and you turned out to be the murderer of their honor." She slapped him hard across the face. The daughters shrank back and began to cry. The king, in anger, drew his sword and placing it near his head said, "Now speak. Tell the truth. Why did you do this? If you utter even one word of a lie, the sword will split your head." Cameron's breathing quickened. Fear spread across his face. In a trembling voice, he began to say, "Your Majesty, I am Bibi Halima's stepson. All these girls are my stepsisters. My father passed away long ago. Halima raised me along with her daughters, but inside, hatred and jealousy kept growing in my heart. When the girls began to grow up, seeing their beauty, my heart began to change. My intention began to spoil, but I knew they would never accept me. I told Halima to marry off the eldest daughter, but she did not take my words seriously. I thought that all these daughters would one day marry and leave, and inside me a devil was born. My lust blinded me. I thought that if I wished, in the darkness of night, I could lay hands on them and no one would be able to catch me. With this very thought, I made a plan. I went to a herbalist and told him to give me such herbs that, when smelled, a person would fall unconscious immediately. Cameron bowed his head and confessed, "I would take from the herbalist those herbs that, when smelled, would render a person unconscious for 4 or 5 hours. In the darkness of night, I would descend from the roof, make the mother and her daughters smell those herbs, and all of them would become unconscious. Then whichever sister upon whom I wanted to fulfill my lust, I would oppress her. I would dress her again in the same way, so that when she awoke in the morning, she would know nothing of anything. I would go back upstairs, and all day everything would remain normal. No one would know anything. I committed this sin repeatedly for many months. If tonight, seeing that dog tied on the roof, I had suspected that a trap had been set, I would have gone back, but I thought perhaps the dog had been brought to be kept. My mind was on my beastliness. That is why I came and was caught." Saying this, he fell silent. A deep silence filled the court. On Bibi Halima's face was a mother's closeness. In the daughter's eyes, shock and tears. King Yazdan's face had turned red with anger. The king looked toward the minister and, with a slight motion of his head, gave the order. The minister drew his sword from its sheath, advanced, and with one stroke separated the head of that beastly stepbrother Cameron from his body. His body writhed for a few moments and then fell silent forever. Justice had prevailed in the court. The king looked toward Bibi Halima and said gently, "Mother, if you had come earlier, perhaps your 3 daughters would not have suffered this sorrow. But what has happened has happened. I promise that I will give your 3 daughters the happiness they deserve." The king chose 3 of the kingdom's best young men, of good character, honorable, and of means, and married them to the 3 daughters. Dowry, gold, silver, wealth, everything was given. Bibi Halima fell at the king's feet, weeping, and kept thanking him again and again. The king held her head and said, "Now, when your remaining 3 daughters come of age, be sure to tell me. I will find honorable matches for them as well. In my kingdom, no daughter is alone. Every oppressed mother is my mother, and every daughter is my daughter." And thus a justice-loving king gave a helpless mother her right, and gave a beast the worst punishment for his sin. If oppression is happening to you, then do not remain silent. Do not fear infamy or worry about society. Speak against oppression, stand up for the truth, because if you remain silent, this world will devour everything of yours. Whoever helps an oppressed person, Allah helps him. Hadith Muslim. The best of you is the one who is best to his family, and I am the best among you to my family. Hadith Tirmidhi. O Allah, make my story one that brings good effects, and through it, grant guidance to every listener. Ameen. If you liked our story, please like it, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so that you keep getting more such interesting stories.